Have you ever watched a referee make a call so horrifically bad that even he couldn't live with himself? That's exactly what happened to Lane Hutson and the Montreal Canadiens on Tuesday night. And folks, this wasn't just a questionable call. This was a penalty so phantom, so utterly divorced from reality, that it might go down as the single worst tripping call in NHL history. Picture this. You're a young defenseman carrying your team's momentum. Your squad is clinging to a 2-1 lead late in the second period, and you've just been gifted a power play opportunity. The crowd is buzzing, your teammates are charging into the offensive zone, and then wham, the whistle blows. You're heading to the sin bin for tripping. The only problem? You never touched anyone. Not even close. You were skating several feet away when your victim simply fell down on his own, like he'd hit an invisible banana peel. This is the nightmare Lane Hutson lived through against the Minnesota Wild, and the fallout has ignited a firestorm across the hockey world. The call was so egregiously wrong that head referee Eric Furlatt, a veteran official who's seen it all, felt compelled to do something almost unheard of in professional sports. He approached Hutson between periods and personally apologized. Let that sink in. In a league where refs are trained to stand by their decisions, where admitting error is seen as weakness, Furlatt couldn't stomach what he'd done. But here's the million-dollar question. If a referee knows he blew the call badly enough to apologize, why can't teams challenge these game-altering mistakes? Why are players and coaches left helpless, watching replays that clearly exonerate their guy, while the penalty clock ticks down and momentum evaporates? The incident unfolded with cruel timing. Montreal had just drawn an interference penalty on Ryan Hartman, giving them a golden chance to extend their lead. Less than 30 seconds into the man advantage, the Canadiens were breaking into the offensive zone with speed and purpose. That's when Marcus Foligno, skating near the blue line, suddenly lost his balance and crashed to the ice. Hutson was in the vicinity, sure, but the replay shows a Grand Canyon-sized gap between the two players. There was zero contact. None. Foligno might as well have been tripped by a ghost, yet Furlatt's arm shot up immediately, and just like that, the power play was dead. 4-on-4 hockey replaced what should have been a momentum-building opportunity for the Habs. Now, let's expand on why this matters beyond just one play. Lane Hutson is not some grizzled veteran who can shrug off injustice with a wry smile. He's a young, talented defenseman trying to establish himself in the world's best hockey league. Every shift matters. Every opportunity to showcase his skills on the power play is a building block for his confidence and his reputation. When a phantom call robs him of that moment, it's not just 2 minutes in the box. It's a psychological blow, a disruption to his rhythm, and a stain on his stat sheet that doesn't reflect reality. Multiply that across a season, and these small injustices can derail careers or tarnish legacies. Let's dive deeper into the anatomy of this disaster and why it represents everything frustrating about NHL officiating in 2026. The NHL is the fastest major sport on earth. Players rocket across the ice at speeds exceeding 20 miles per hour, pucks fly at over 100 miles per hour, and split-second decisions define outcomes. Referees are tasked with tracking all of this chaos while positioned at ice level, often with obstructed sight lines and bodies flying everywhere. It's an impossible job, which is why most fans can forgive the occasional miscall. But this wasn't a bang-bang play where Furlatt had a fraction of a second to make a judgment. The replay shows Hutson and Foligno were clearly separated when Foligno went down. This was a fundamental misread of the situation, the kind of error that makes you wonder if Furlatt blinked at the exact wrong moment or if his angle was so poor he literally couldn't see what was happening. Here's where it gets even more maddening. The NHL has instant replay technology for goals, offsides, and goaltender interference. Coaches can challenge certain calls, and the league has embraced video review to get things right in critical moments. But penalties? Nope. Once that arm goes up, the call stands, no matter how obvious the mistake. The logic behind this policy is supposedly to maintain the flow of the game and avoid endless stoppages, But that reasoning falls apart when you consider that a bogus penalty can swing momentum far more dramatically than a 60-second review ever could. Imagine if the Canadiens had been trailing by 1 goal late in the third, and this phantom call had led directly to a wild power play goal that sealed their fate. The apology from Furlatt would have felt like a cruel joke. A nice gesture, sure, but utterly meaningless in the standings. Let's also talk about the broader context of officiating inconsistency that's plagued the NHL this season. Fans across the league have been howling about the wildly uneven application of rules. One night, a player gets away with a blatant hook that nearly decapitates an opponent. The next night, a player breathes on someone and gets sent to the box. The lack of a reviewable penalty system means these inconsistencies compound over time, breeding cynicism and conspiracy theories. Canadiens fans, already battle-tested from years of playoff heartbreak and controversial calls, had every right to feel like the hockey gods were conspiring against them once again. Social media exploded with outrage, memes flooded Twitter, and the hashtag #PhantomTrip trended within minutes. Some fans even dug up old clips of similarly bad calls against Montreal, building a case that their team is uniquely cursed by officiating incompetence. But here's the twist that saved the story from becoming a full-blown tragedy. The Canadiens didn't let the injustice break them. Neither team scored during the ensuing 4-on-4, and when Hartman's penalty expired, Minnesota couldn't capitalize on their brief 25-second power play. Montreal's penalty kill stood tall, and the team's resilience shone through. Fast forward to the final seconds of the third period, score tied 3-3, tension thick enough to cut with a skate blade, and Cole Caulfield becomes the hero. With just 15 seconds left on the clock, Caulfield buried the game winner, sending the Bell Center into absolute pandemonium and securing a 4-3 victory. Justice, in a poetic sense, was served. The bad call didn't cost Montreal the game, but it easily could have, and that's the terrifying reality teams face every night. So, where do we go from here? Eric Furlatt's apology to Lane Hutson was a rare moment of accountability in a profession that rarely admits fault publicly. It takes guts to look a player in the eye and say, "I screwed up," especially when you know that admission will be dissected by millions of fans and analysts. Furlatt deserves credit for his integrity, but his apology also highlights a glaring flaw in the system. If the refs themselves recognize they're making game-altering mistakes, why isn't there a mechanism to correct them in real time? The technology exists. The precedent for video review exists. The only thing missing is the will to implement it. The NHL needs to seriously consider expanding coaches' challenges to include egregious penalty calls, not every minor infraction, but the truly indefensible ones like this phantom trip. Give each team one challenge per game specifically for penalties. If the replay clearly shows no infraction occurred, reverse the call and restore the power play. If the challenge is wrong, the team loses a timeout or faces a delay of game penalty. This system would preserve the flow of the game while providing a safety net against the kind of officiating catastrophe we witnessed on Tuesday night. The league prides itself on getting calls right when it comes to goals and offsides. Why should penalties, which can be just as decisive, be exempt from scrutiny? For Lane Hutson, this experience will become a defining moment in his young career. He'll remember the injustice, the frustration of being punished for something he didn't do, but he'll also remember how his team rallied and won despite the adversity. That's the kind of character-building experience that separates good players from great ones. As for Canadiens fans, they can exhale knowing their team escaped with 2 points, but the bitter taste of what could have been will linger. This game was a microcosm of everything beautiful and infuriating about hockey: the speed, the drama, the human error, and the ultimate triumph of perseverance. Now, it's your turn, hockey fanatics. Have you ever seen a worse penalty call than this phantom trip on Lane Hutson? Do you think the NHL should allow coaches to challenge penalties, or would that slow the game down too much? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear your wildest officiating horror stories and your ideas for fixing this broken system. And if you're as fired up about this as I am, smash that like button and let's keep this conversation going. The refs might not always get it right, but together we can hold them accountable and demand better for the game we love.